podcast, and today I have a really special guest, someone who has made their career of empowering humans. I am so happy that she joined us. We are blessed. Welcome, Meg, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so excited to be here. So, as you said, my name is Meg. I am a therapist by trade. I've been licensed since 2006, and I help people with trauma, secondary trauma, burnout. I do a lot of work with first responders, medical professionals, other therapists. And over the years, I've kind of transitioned a little bit to adding coaching to my repertoire as well. And what I love about the coaching is really helping therapists like myself, helping therapists to get over some of that fear of marketing, because it's a completely different language, a completely different mindset than what we do in therapy. But there's so many people out there, so many therapists out there that want to go into private practice, but just don't know what to do, don't know how to get going with it. So I love that aspect as well.
Wow, that is amazing. That is a lot. So we do have a lot to talk about.
Yes.
And I want to start off with the trauma.
Go for it.
Because that's like really important. What is secondary trauma?
Trauma is when something happens to you.
Yeah.
Secondary trauma is when something happens to somebody else, but that you either hear about it or see it. So it's not actually your trauma. It's a learned or witnessed trauma.
Oh, wow. Wait, as a therapist, doesn't that happen to you guys? I mean,
all the time.
Hearing it all day.
All the time. Because the survival brain doesn't know the difference between my story and your story. The survival system is basically bringing in information and saying safe or not safe, but it's visualizing everything that's being said. So if you're telling me a story, if you're sharing your trauma with me, my amygdala, my brain is visualizing that, right? So I'm seeing what you went through. And as I'm seeing what you went through, my amygdala starts to get activated on that. So my amygdala doesn't know that it's your story. It's kind of like when we jump to a scary movie. It's not our story. It's not even real. It's a movie.
But you still react to it, right? You're in the movie. Wow.
Yep.
I work with therapists, as you know, and I never thought about, wait a minute, you sit there and you hear all this stuff. You hear people like me talking, and what do you do?
So real quick, the one other piece to that that's really important is trauma is not an event, because if trauma were an event, then everyone coming back from war would either have or not have PTSD. So trauma isn't an event, but it's how we respond to the event, right? So if we're talking about secondary trauma, people can share their experiences, and I can either take that on as my story or not. If I take it on as my story, if my amygdala is hearing all of this and I'm visualizing all of this and I'm reacting with a lot of sympathy or empathy, and my body is responding to it, I can take that on as my own story. But if I can keep it slightly detached but still empathetic perspective, if I can keep my body relaxed, my breathing calm, and keep this slight distance between you and me, then I'm able to prevent that from becoming my trauma. So then I don't end up having that secondary trauma.
That is interesting. I promise you, I didn't even think about that. That must be very hard for a therapist to go through, because you got to be there for the client, right? You have to, like you said, empathetic, but if you're going through it with them, that's difficult to detach. What would you say to a coach therapist? What would you say to a therapist? Give them a tip on how to detach yourself more efficiently.
Pay attention to your body. Are you tensing up anywhere? If you're tensing, release it. Because one of the first things that happens with our survival system, with our fight flight, is we tense up. Like if I said we jump to the scary movie, right? We tense up. Or if I think I'm going to get in a car crash, I tense up. Right? So how is your body handling this? Calm the body down.
And pay attention to that.
Yep.
And know when you have to detach.
So pay attention to the breath as well. Breath and body. Yeah. Are you tight anywhere? And how's your breathing? Are you breathing shallow from the chest, or are you taking those deep diaphragmatic type breathing?
Wow. Yeah, because your body tells tells you what's going on, right?
Exactly.
I love it. And so do you specialize in trauma? Is that
Mhm.
when you work with mental health? And what do you do? What is your specialty?
I do a lot of work with what's called EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So do you know much about it? Want me to share about it?
Please share, because I've heard it, right? I hear it, and I mean, it sounds very interesting. Please share.
Okay, so off the bat, EMDR can sound very strange. It can sound very weird. So the traditional way of EMDR is eye movements. So we're going to be doing eye movements, and you're just going to be thinking, it's a little bit more detailed than this, but you're going to be thinking about your traumas. And we're going to make them better.
Talking, you're moving your...
And then we're going to make it better. Right? That's a very, very, very high level view of it. But if we come down a little bit with it, EMDR is an 8-phase model. So the we want to get the assessment, the treatment plan, safety stabilization. That is the most important phase in EMDR is safety stabilization. And that's basically our coping skills. So can the person regulate? We want to know if the person is, if they get too much into the hyper arousal, so are they getting those anxious states, or are they getting hypo aroused? Are they getting more dissociated, numb, just detached? Because what the tools we're going to use are going to vary based on whether we're in hyper arousal or hypo arousal. So we want to be able to give them a bunch of tools and know that they can use those tools. Because just because you leave my office doesn't mean that the brain stops thinking. So you're going to go home, and now you're going to be processing everything we've been talking about all day, or for that hour. And if you can't self-regulate, I'm just re-traumatizing you. I'm just making it worse.
Oh. So, and why is this such an effective model? Because I hear it is. I hear it's effective. I hear that you have to do it with someone who knows what they're doing. Like you have to be careful.
Yes. They don't know exactly why EMDR works. So how I was saying that we do back and forth with the eyes, right? So basically they're thinking that there's a couple of theories behind it. One of the theories is that it's kind of like REM sleep, where, your eyes are moving back and forth real quick at night. And as you're doing that, you're doing a lot of processing. So you have one foot in the present. You're here with me in the office. You have one foot in the present and one foot in the past. So you're still feeling. I want you to feel everything that you felt. Well, I want you to feel everything that you're feeling now, not how you felt back then.
Got it.
Right? Because trauma is what's stuck in the body. So what are you feeling now? And as we're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, you're keeping one foot with me and one foot in the past. So we're orienting you also to the present, right? So it's basically this processing, and we're saying, hey, you're still here with me. You're still safe.
Got it.
So one of the theories is kind of that REM sleep. Similar to that is an orienting model, where they think that, when you walk into a new place and you look around, you're orienting yourself. So it's similar to that, where you're going back and forth, you're orienting yourself to the here and now instead of the past.
That makes sense.
But people don't really know. The researchers aren't sure exactly why it works.
How did they figure it out?
Francine Shapiro just figured it out by accident one day. She was walking through the park or woods or wherever she was walking, I can't remember. And whatever was disturbing her just ended up not disturbing her anymore. And she's like, what just happened there? And she realized that her eyes were going back and forth just thinking about it. Long story short, she got all sorts of, she practiced on other friends, and then she got all sorts of grants, and then,
she practiced on her friends.
Hey, can I just try something on you real quick? I'm curious about this.
Why not? No, I've gone through a lot of trauma. Everybody that knows me knows that, right? And I use counseling a lot. That's why I love it, right? And one of the things they've talked to me to try this, but someone told me you have to be careful because I use a lot of passion in everything I do, that it will somehow affect that. Is that true? I'm really asking for me. Like, would it
affect your passion? How?
Like it would calm me down, or it would lower the passion?
It's not going to change your personality. So if you're an animated person, a passionate person, it's not going to change your personality. But so yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. What it does is it basically rewires the brain so that the response in the body isn't going to be there. So for example, if you had like I went through Hurricane Andrew in Miami in 92, and I still feel that. I should do some EMDR on that.
Can you do it to yourself? No, you can't.
No, you cannot do it to yourself.
I'm just asking.
Yep, there's, I can get into that later, but so basically, when a hurricane comes, because well, we're in Florida, when a hurricane comes, my body gets responsive to that, and I have to keep telling myself, hey, right here, right now, I'm okay, right? But if I did the EMDR on that, it's not going to take away the memory. I'm not going to forget any of what had happened. I'm not going to forget how I felt. It's just going to basically be another event. Because remember I said that trauma is the body's response, but it's not the event. So it's like if a person came back from war and they don't have PTSD, it's not that they don't remember what happened, right? So similar, it's only going to help with the memory and the memory networks that's attached to. So it's not going to change your personality.
Okay, so I was worried. I'm like, I don't want to stop being me. Okay,
no, you won't.
perfect.
You won't.
So tell me a little bit more about trauma. Someone that goes through trauma. What are they going through? Why is it such a big thing? Because they feel it in their bodies, right? You feel it everywhere.
Yeah.
So why? Why do you think that is?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think that what happens is, my understanding of it is that the brain is trying to protect us. All living things just want to survive. So the brain is trying to protect us. We've got the left brain, the logic brain, the right brain, the emotion brain. We've got the right brain is that emotion brain. It also stores a lot of the memory aspects to emotion, visualization, imagination. That's what I was looking for. All that imagery type stuff, right? But also all of the sensory details that come into the body. So what happens with trauma is that part of the brain is so much more powerful, more influential than the logic side of the brain. If I'm being attacked by a bear, if I'm being chased by a bear, my left side of my brain is being shut down. If I'm being chased by a bear and you ask me, hey, Meg, what are you having for dinner tonight? I have no idea what I'm having for dinner, and I don't care. I am going to be dinner.
You are the dinner.
Right? So sometimes you might come up to somebody who's gone through something, and you ask them what happened, and they're just like, I don't even know. I can't even, I don't know. Right? Because first of all, they can't process all of it. The left brain, the thinking brain, isn't on. It's all just emotion right now. Also, our Broca's area is our speech area, and that's on the left side of the brain. So sometimes people just are speechless. They can't talk. Right? Now, that's normal when an event happens, and it's normal for a certain period of time as the brain tries to process through whatever happened. But if it gets stuck, if there's a piece that it can't get over, if there's a piece that it can't understand, make sense of, then the brain holds it in the front and basically says, let's keep thinking about this. Because if we think about it enough, we're going to figure out how to prevent it in the future, how to keep you safe. So it keeps all this stuff very present, so that it's like, remember this feeling, remember this body sensation, remember this emotion, remember this thought, remember this image, remember this, and this. It's keeping all of it right there so that it'll, as you process through over and over and over, unhelpfully, the brain's trying to make sense of it and let it go. But it got stuck, and it can't. And traditional left brain CBT isn't going to fix that
at all. And that's why this is a great model for that.
Yes.
So what would you say to someone that is still not on that road where they want to go to counseling, right? They're still scared of it, but you do want to give them something as to what to do to deal with their trauma today, or how to start, what to do.
So similar to how I was talking to you about therapists sitting in a therapist office dealing with the trauma of their clients. Exact same thing. Focus on the body. Just I learned this from I think it was one of Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's trainings. But he says that he used to teach people, and I do the exact same wording, that to practice the tools 200 times a day.
Ooh.
So I've told my clients the same thing, right? But basically what it is how often throughout the day, how much of the day are you anxious? How much of the day are you focused on the trauma? If we only practice the tools once a day, you're not going to get on top of it at all.
Got it.
Right?
Got it.
Similar to if you try and eat healthy, but you have one salad a day, but
Yeah,
the
that
rest of
one's
your
harder.
day is crap foods.
Yeah,
That one
not
salad's
gonna
not
work
going to make
out.
up.
Got it. So you're saying listen to your body, look at what it's doing. Wow, that's actually
To
really
calm the
good
system
advice.
down, where am I tense? A lot of times with trauma, we disconnect the brain and the body. So I don't know what's going on in my body. I'll ask a lot of my clients, where do you feel it? And they're like, I don't know, or all over, right? It's not a specific place because we've disconnected. Because the body's not safe, right? Because I know logically that I'm okay, but the body's telling me I'm not. So the body's just not safe. Ignore the body. So what we want to do is we want to start reconnecting the body.
Got it. Got it.
So
That's amazing. That's actually really good advice for a lot of things, right?
yeah,
Listen to your body because it's everything
but
is telling you.
the crux, is that the right word? The crux of all of this is the one thing that any living creature wants to do is survive. At your very basic level, your brain, your body's trying to survive. So as you are using these tools, as all you're doing is breathing, grounding, calming the system down, releasing the muscles. As you're doing that, your body's going to fight you. Your brain is going to fight you. It's not going to just give in and say, "Oh, we're okay."
Why not?
It's
The rule's that easy,
because
right?
it wants to figure it out, right? It wants to help you survive. So expect it to feel like it's not working. Expect it to feel like it's pointless and why even bother? You have to get through that to get to the other side of it. And that's going to really depend how long it's going to take. Did this happen to you last week? And if it happened to you last week, what other experiences do you have related to it? If you had a car crash last week, we see car crashes all the time, whether on social media, in news, in real life, whatever. We have a lot of experiences of car crashes. So just because it happened last week doesn't mean you're necessarily going to feel better immediately. Your brain is saying, and this, and this, and this, and this. But if it's something, I don't know, much more rare, then it might, and it happened last week, and I'm drawing a blank on what that might be in today's world, but then it might.
There's a lot.
Yeah. Then it might be faster to heal. But also through your whole life, what were your parents like? If your parents had a lot of anxiety, if your parents were always very anxious about things, you grew up believing the world is not a safe place because you took on their feelings, their experiences implicitly, not even explicitly. So as you're using these tools, it's a lot deeper than just what I'm working on right now, which is why EMDR is also so helpful, because we might start with this, whatever the issue is that you came to me for, but we're going to go all the way down. So what is the worst part of this trauma, right? And then where do you feel it in your body? How strong is that? What does it mean about you as a person? What it means about you as a person, if this was more than 6 months ago, we want to ask, what does it mean about you as a person? Because if it was less than 6 months, it may not have changed your worldview of who you are as a person yet. But if it happened a while ago and it's really been cycling in there, what does it mean about you as a person? I'm a failure. I'm bad. There's something wrong with me. People can't be trusted, right? So then with all of that in mind, I want you to float back through your life and just tell me all the different times that you remember feeling this. And eventually we're going to get down to something that's pretty early on. We're going to get down to something that's generally 3 to 5 years old. And then from there, we got the root. And we can hit that root and we can clear up that root with EMDR. Then we'll be able to clear up that whole memory network. If we start only with this one issue, like hurricanes, if I only do this one hurricane, if I only work on Andrew, it's not going to clear it completely, because A, there's other hurricanes, and B, there's other feelings of not feeling safe or, that sort of stuff, right? So there's other pieces that are connected to that memory. It's not in a vacuum. Our memory networks are a spider web. So if we only do this piece of it, we're missing the rest of it. So that's why EMDR is so helpful, because it just gets at the whole memory network.
I love it. And I like something you said. If you're like, look at your parents, right? They brought you up with anxious. Is that why maybe trauma is different, so different for different people, right? Because
Yeah,
what gives me trauma doesn't give the next person trauma, right?
exactly. Exactly. And
That
we
is,
all have narratives of ourselves in the world. We all have money story, narratives. And all those stories that we grow up with, even if they're not explicitly told to us, all those narratives that we grow up with shape who we are.
and how back, like trauma, does it go? Is it always something that goes way back, or is it possible, like you said, 6 months ago, something that happened?
Usually it's something that goes far back.
Got it. So
Not 100% across the board, but usually, because what happens is it's connecting to something that it can't overcome. If it's something, if we don't have anything in our background, it really doesn't have anything to connect to, it's easier to process through. So,
and it's sometimes when you go back there, when you go all the way back there, and you find out what it is, is it a surprise sometimes? Like you don't see how that should have connected,
yep,
or
often
is it
because it's not, it's kind of like if you think about, oh, I did this once before, and I did it so long ago, I'm not gonna remember it. But if you smell a pumpkin spice candle, that pumpkin spice candle is gonna remind you of Halloween. Halloween is gonna remind you of haunted houses. Haunted houses are gonna remind you of being 5 years old and being scared at a haunted hayride, right? So it's this pumpkin spice candle is reminding me of being scared at 5 years old going through a haunted hayride.
wow?
They
So
are not connected,
it's connections,
but they are.
Yeah. So it reminds you that you were attacked by a bear one time, and right?
Right.
So what got you into mental health? I always, every time I talk to a clinician, I like to find out why mental health. There's a lot of careers you could have chosen. Why mental health? Why counseling?
I went through a lot of my own traumas as well. Hurricane Andrew was one of them, but I had a lot of my own traumas as well. So I knew from a young age that I'm going to help people. I had no idea. I mean, I'm a kid. I had no idea. What does helping people even mean?
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to help people. Right. And then as I got a little bit older, it was, oh, I'm going to help people through trauma. And now it makes sense to me. Now I know what I want to do. I'm going to help people through trauma. And as I continued to get older, by the time I got into high school, it was, I'm going to work for DCF, because Child Protective Services, right? Because I'm going to help children that have been through really difficult experiences, or are going through really difficult experiences. And that actually came from one of my DCF workers, where she was just amazing, and she really just completely changed my whole perspective on the world.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you'd think that therapy would do that, right?
Well, that's kind of therapy, right?
In a way. And I'm sure it wasn't just her. I'm sure, therapy also, and whatever. But so I'm like, all right, so this is it. I'm going to work for CPS. I'm going to work for DCF. Well, that was my first job out of college, out of graduate school. I stayed there for all of 8 months, and I was done.
8 months? That was quick.
That was quick. So then I'm like, now what? Right. So I kind of bounced around different things. I'd done in-home therapy, working with adolescents, really so working with their parents to change the adolescent's behavior. And I went from there to substance use, and then I went from there to inpatient psych. And inpatient psych was actually pretty cool. That was up in Connecticut, and they did a great job. It was still the revolving door, and in and out in 3 to 5 days, but their program was, they had 6+ groups a day, and it was a lot more robust. But anyway, so through all of this, I'm like, this is all cool and fine and dandy, but not really fulfilling. And I never thought I was going to go into private practice, because I can't sit still. So if I need to sit still for an hour,
It's hard.
1 hour after another, how the hell am I going to do that? I can't sit still. So then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try private practice, one person in the evenings, just dip my toe in. And I actually really enjoyed it. And so by the time I moved down here, I'm like, I'm never working in an agency again. You know, I'm only going to work in a private practice. That is it. My private, not in a, but my.
Yes, but your private practice. She's like, I'm not working for nobody.
I'm not working for anybody. I mean, I did, and I still do work PRN at certain places just to, well, back then it was to supplement, but you know, now it's just because I still enjoy. But then when I got into private practice, it was really, okay, who do I like working with? And again, I'm always wanting to work with trauma, right? So I've worked with adolescents, and then I tried children, adolescents. They're not my gig. No. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll work with adults only. I'll work with adults only, which is great. But then it's like, there's so many different populations that I can work with adults with trauma. So which one seems to fit me best? And I mean, I wasn't trying to find anything per se. I was just, you know, whoever came to me, and I was like, how did I feel working with them? You know, this sort of thing. And a police officer came to me, and I'm like, this is amazing. What this person does for the world, like kind of like what that DCF worker did to me, what this person did to the world or does for the world, and then seeing his transformation working with me and seeing his gaining his life back, gaining his breath back, you know, was just so amazing. I'm like, how can I not do this? So that's where I kind of ended up with the niche of first responders.
So first responders, so police officers, firefighters,
EMS, 911 dispatchers.
So you like helping people that help people. Is that like a bigger purpose of yours? Is it, do you feel like you're adding to the world and contributing that way?
Yeah, in a manner of speaking, because basically I'm helping you do your thing, right? Like you have something to give to the world. You have something that I can't give. And I'm helping you make sure you can do that.
That is amazing. Yeah, because think about it. I mean, you're helping a lot of people by helping this one person who is now able to go to work and do their job much better. So good for you. That's an amazing story.
Well, yeah,
wow. Thanks. So how long have you, I know you said it before, how long have you been doing this work, the private practice?
Private practice, I don't think I said that, but private practice, I started in 2014. So I got into therapy in 2006. Like I graduated in 2006. But then private practice was 14.
So now, that wasn't enough. It's not enough to help the police officers, and you needed to help more. So now you're actually helping other counselors. Let's talk about that, because that's huge, right?
Yeah. So with the therapists, with the counseling and with the first responders, that also includes therapists. That includes doctors. That includes nurses, right? So that includes all of that, helping anyone that's basically helping other people. I'm helping you maintain your passion. So it's not just the first responders. And I want to say real quick before moving on, EMDR really gets into the right brain, the left brain, and the body, and the core beliefs. That's why it's so effective, because it hits the logic, the emotion, the body sensations, and what I believe about myself deeply at my core that I don't want to admit to the world.
Got it.
So that I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did.
So now getting into coaching and helping therapists build their private practice. One of my colleagues in one of the agencies I was working for, I don't remember what she said to me exactly, but she asked me a question, and I said, you know what? Private practice is a freedom that you're never going to come back from. And at that point in time, she had no interest in going into private practice. You know, she loved what she did. And cool. I mean, I'm not trying to get you into private practice. If that's not what you want to do, that's fine. Yeah. Right. But she asked me that, whatever she asked me, and that was my response to her. And I didn't think anything of it. And then a couple years later, she came back to me and she said, Meg, I opened up my private practice. And I said, you did what? I didn't want to do private practice. She said, yeah, I've been thinking about what you said about how it's a freedom that you can't come back from. And I have to give that a try. And I'm like, oh, cool.
Thanks, Meg.
Yeah. And throughout the years, I've had other stories exactly like that, where people, I'd say one thing and people are like, they just took it and ran with it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So like getting you to your next level, getting you to where, something that's going to get you to your next, how life is, where you want life to be for you. Why do you want to, if you want to be in a 9 to 5, all the more power to you, which is never a 9 to 5, but if you want to venture, if you don't want to venture out, that's fine. But if I say this one thing to you and then you end up wanting to later, that's pretty cool. But you come to me because you want to venture out, but you're still scared. I don't know if I can take this leap. Sometimes it's about, like, I really focus on that managing the anxiety piece, right? And I do focus a lot on that, managing the anxiety of marketing, but just managing that anxiety piece, because how are you going to pay into retirement? How are you going to, you don't have that steady income anymore. You want to go on vacation, you're not getting paid. Right. Unless, of course, you're an S corp or whatever and start paying yourself a salary. It's a completely different issue.
I got what you mean.
But,
it's
right.
It's not, it's not like you get that vacation time from your job. And,
you don't see clients, you don't get paid. You don't get paid, So people get scared about that. Health insurance, can I get in? I mean, if people are married or cohabiting, that's not the right word, domestic partner, and they can be on their partner or spouse's plan, easy, no problem. They don't worry about the health insurance. But if they can't, or they're not with anybody, now I have to get on a health insurance plan too. So I have to pay for my health insurance. Plus I have to pay for both sides of Medicare now. Right? So I have to pay more in taxes with that regard. Yep. I can't do that if I don't get paid. So it's really scary for a lot of people to make that leap. It is. And the way I started it was one person, right? And then I just kind of put more and more in. And as I did that, I found out, this is up in Connecticut, but I'm like, can I go part-time? Right. So I was able to back away from my job and make my job a part-time job. So I was still getting that income from that as I was building up. And yes, it did drop the income some as I had to build up, but I wasn't taking the full leap. And then at a certain point in time, you just take that leap. You're like,
and it's hard. And I think a lot of people don't picture, people, non-counselors don't understand that that's being an entrepreneur. Counselors are also being an entrepreneur, which is, yes, it is scary. You have to really know that there's going to be some pitfalls. So that's what you deal with, not deal with. That's what you help them with the fear of getting out there and getting their word out there and telling people that they have a business. So how hard is it to do that? Because it's hard.
For me or for them?
To coach someone on getting them to get out there.
For me, it's not hard at all. For them, it's harder. Right? Because for them, their fear response is still trying to take over. I can only help you. I can only support you along the way. I can only provide you with some tools. I can't do it for you. Right? So, I work with people on managing that anxiety aspect of it. But at the end of the day, it's on you. So for me, it's really easy. For you, it's a lot harder. But I try and make it as easy as possible by helping align their who they are. Like, are they more of a morning person, night person? Are they more of an introvert or an extrovert? Do they know if they want to work with a certain population yet? Are they okay backing off a little bit and still being at an agency part-time? Right. So we try and make it as the way I did it, right, as step easy as possible instead of taking a really big leap. And that is a lot easier.
it's scary, man. It is
It
really scary
is.
being an entrepreneur. And I've been an entrepreneur probably all of my professional career, and I still get scared.
Mhm.
It's still scary because that's the support. So that's why it's cool to have someone like you supporting, especially mental health
Mhm.
professionals. So
Mhm.
where are you exactly?
And we're not taught how we didn't go to business school. We're not taught any of this stuff.
Yes.
I am in Sarasota, Bradenton.
Got it. So, okay. So this is probably a bad question, but I gotta ask, what do you like better? Counseling or coaching counselors? If you
That
had to
is a
choose?
bad question.
I know, but I have to put you on the spot a little bit.
No, it's not about being on the spot. I absolutely love both, right? And because they fulfill me in two different ways.
Got it.
So which one I like better is harder to answer, because the therapy is fulfilling me in one way because I'm helping people that are struggling more, so that, those first responders and even therapists going through burnout, I'm helping people who are struggling more to be able to maintain what it is that they love, their passion, their calling. But with the coaching, I'm helping people get to that next level in their life where they want to be, that's going to make them happy. So they're two completely different levels of working with people. So they fulfill me in completely different ways. So it's kind of a bad question in that
Of course, but I'm a bad question asker. So
it's hard to answer. If I had to choose, you can only do one thing,
yes,
and not both. I would probably choose coaching for what's the word I'm looking for? Purpose? No. Reason that I can get a broader audience.
Got it. Okay.
I cannot be licensed in all 50 states.
Oh,
I could.
yes.
I could.
But it's hard. It's difficult.
Why the heck would I want to?
That's
right. So I would have a much broader audience. I'd have much broader reach. So I wouldn't feel like I'm only helping people here. I feel like I'd be helping more of the United States.
Sense. Makes sense. And you were explaining a little bit about the difference between coaching and counseling. Can you go a little bit deeper into that so people know the difference?
Basically, a very surface level. I don't have a lot of deep issues. Generally, I'm okay, but I just need a little bit of guidance on something. So we're not going to necessarily go into a lot of background work. If we go into background work, it's basically to understand this is where this came from, but it's not going to be, let's fix this piece of it. I can give you resources and you can kind of look into this and whatnot. Or you can find a therapist to help you work on that piece. Therapy is working on that piece. Therapy is working on the deeper levels with people to help them to bring them to the surface instead of from the surface up a little bit.
Oh, so I mean, it matches good working on both, right?
Yeah.
Because one is for the past, one is for the future. That's pretty cool. I'm proud of you. Look at Meg. Jeez, you are.
And it's not that therapy doesn't go into the future, because it does.
Okay.
Right. It's like when you're working with therapy, when you're in therapy, you're trying to solve a problem because I'm not okay now. Right. So I'm feeling really, really anxious and I can't function as well as I want to be. Right. So I'm going to work with you on that anxiety, but that anxiety isn't just now. That anxiety has come from somewhere. But it's because you want this that's up here. So we're going to get you to surface level, but then you want to get beyond that. So it's not that we can't get beyond that. We can. You can still do that with therapy. That's the nice thing with therapy is it's not just a past to current. It is a past to future.
So you're amazing. You're doing a lot of stuff. How do you have time to do? I mean, it must be really difficult to do both things because they're both like a lot of work. So good for you. I'm very proud of you. I am so happy we have Meg Youngs in the world that are doing it. So what would you tell someone, a person that I ask this all the time to counselors, that is thinking about getting counseling, right? But you see, for me, for instance, I come from my background, counseling was a no-no, right? It's not it's like, what are you doing? So what would you tell a person that is on that edge to go get the counseling, but they keep telling themselves no, or people around them are telling them no, what would you tell them to make them try it, or ask them to try it?
I guess the first thing I would do is talk to them with what's holding them back. So is it a cultural thing or a gender thing, or, you know, so if it's a cultural thing, can they find a therapist that has the same culture? If it's a gender thing, can they find somebody that's of the same gender or non-gender, you know, but you know, that sort of thing. So find somebody that aligns with where your fear is and start with that type of person.
Nice. That's really good advice. Why weren't you around before when I needed you to tell me this? But no,
I don't know where I was at the time.
That's actually really good advice. Yeah, because for me, it was a little bit of both, right? It was cultural, and being a male, it was really difficult. You know, everybody around me was getting counseling for what we were all going through.
Yeah.
But it was a no for me. But I wanted it. That's the sad part. I really wanted it, but it was a no-go. So
a lot of therapists also offer free consultations. So they'll give you like generally somewhere between 15 and 30 minutes as a first initial contact. What is it that I can help you with? Right. So if the person calls up and says, look, I really don't know if I want to do therapy. I mean, I want to do therapy, but I really don't at the same time. I'm calling you because, you know, there's this cultural barrier and you have the same culture. Can you tell me a little bit about how you do therapy? You know, how can you help me overcome this cultural barrier so that I can actually come to you? So then that therapist will be able to explain how they do therapy, what their thoughts on it are, you know, how you might be able to talk to other people in your world about you being in therapy in that first initial conversation. And if you feel good with that free consultation, this person does understand me, you know, they gave me some tools right off the bat in terms of how to handle people who are asking me, what are you doing every Tuesday at 2? You know, then I feel more comfortable coming to you.
Got it.
So take advantage of those initial consultations. And for the most part, what I have found is therapists, it isn't about them. They want you to get better. If you're not the right therapist for them, they want you to find somebody who is. So if you do an initial consultation with me and at the end of the day, you're like that consultation, you're like, we just didn't quite match. Then I can say, look, here's another couple therapists that are of the same culture. Why don't you go and call them as well? You know, give them a try. So I can now refer you, knowing a little bit more about you and knowing other therapists who you might actually mesh with better.
Got it. So it's a great, no matter what, that consultation is a great resource, even if that's not the match for you. There's nothing to be scared of. I'm telling you, when I started, I was very scared.
Yeah.
I was so scared, and at first it wasn't working because I was holding everything back. I was so defensive. I felt like anything I would say is just me admitting to weakness, all that stuff. But once I got that right counselor, man, I go in there ready. You know, I can't wait to tell them this. I can't wait to tell them that.
That's awesome.
And it changes your world. It does. I mean, it's just, even if you do not want to believe in the fact that this person can guide you or help you in that, just being able to tell someone, get it off your chest, you know, that they can't legally say anything to anybody. It makes a huge difference.
Yes,
so
it does.
What can clients in the counseling side, this is the first time we have to talk about two sides. So in the counseling side, what can your clients or future clients expect when they come in to see you in the beginning?
So generally my first appointment is a 90-minute appointment. And in that appointment, we go through a ton of questions. Who are you? What are you looking for? Right? We go through your background, you know, talk to me about your family, your cultural background, your spiritual background, kind of getting an idea of any potential traumas that have happened, help your parents handled stress, you know, any early childhood separations from parents, you know, different things like that, that kind of might give me an idea of something, of where you're at. I always like to do a scale or two. So whether it's the anxiety scale, the PTSD scale, it's called the PCL, PTSD checklist, the PCL, or depression scale. I always like to do a scale at the beginning because I want to get a baseline. This is where you are now. After we do that, after we do the assessment and the scales, then it's the treatment plan. What is it that you want to see different? Paying attention to everything you just told me, plus looking at all the symptoms you just told me about in those scales. What do you want to see different at the end of therapy? So we get this really good idea of, I want these behaviors to change. You know, I want to feel this instead, whatever the case may be. And then from there, 99% of the time, I then work with them on education. You know, what is anxiety? Where does anxiety come from? Trauma responses, where does that come from? Similar to like cultural beliefs, right? Like, how do we get these narratives within us, whether it's cultural or otherwise? Like, how do we get these narratives? So I do a lot of education and coping skill lessons. I always give them I don't know, it's like 5 or 6 sheets of paper of different tools. And
Nice.
generally what I do is that's it. And I send them home with it. And I say, just take a look at it. But then the following session, we go through them all and we practice them all together. But I just give them time to kind of look it over and see what they think about them. And if there's one that they want to practice more, or they've tried this one before, they had experience, they like this one already, they know about it. So I give them, just go home and look at it. And then I always always practice it, because you're busy. You're going to leave my office and you're going to forget to practice them.
That's right. That's right.
So I always practice. Depending on what it is that you came to me for, sometimes EMDR, I said, was an 8-phase model. So up till now, everything we're doing is also part of the EMDR model. All right. So, you know, the assessment, the treatment plan, you know, the safety stabilization, coping skills, everything we've done up till now is EMDR anyway. So depending on what's going on and what your needs are, my next step is, do we go into EMDR? If they want to go into EMDR, I do a little bit more, well, I always do more anyway, on that coping skill piece, right? Just to really, really know that they know what they're doing. Also, sometimes that's all they need. Sometimes if we do the safety stabilization and we do it with the slow bilaterals, so we're not going reprocessing speed, but we're just kind of like rocking a baby to sleep.
Oh,
If we
that
go
sounds
slow,
comfortable.
yeah. If we go slow, if we do calm place, visualize a place that makes you feel really calm, really at peace. And we're just going slow. So whether it's with the eye movements, I also use tappers that just kind of buzz in each hand, one side, then the other side. So it's still a bilateral stimulation. I'm using one side of the body and then the other.
So you're doing this while you're talking? Like, oh my
yeah,
goodness.
just so it's
that
really
sounds
just
like I don't know. I'm
you're gonna go to
nervous
sleep.
thinking about it.
You're gonna go to sleep. It's really you're not, but really I'm calming your system down, right? Because what we're doing is we're going slow. We're not going into any traumas. We're basically thinking about that calm place. And the more we think about that calm place, the more we're doing the slow bilaterals, we're calming the system down, kind of like you're going to rock a baby to sleep. You're going slow. You're not going to rock them to sleep by going quickly with them. No. First of all, it's not safe for them. But second of all, it's not going to help them go to sleep unless you want a permanent sleep.
Let you know.
Do not try this at home. But so it's a safe thing to do. You know, it's not something, but if they can't handle that, if we're doing some of this bilateral and they are just so activated that they can't do this, we slow it down. So instead of doing 5 minutes of it, let's do 10 seconds of it. And then we get out of it, we shake it off. You know, it's just like, and we talk about something else. I don't care what we talk about. Just talk about anything.
You have to be experienced. You got to know when not to, when to. How do you explain to them, listen, I'm going to be doing some stuff over here while we talk?
It's more so that I ask them, you know, let's try, do you mind if we try something? You know, this is going to seem kind of weird. It may not, you know, may not be what you're normally used to, but, you know, I'm just curious if it's going to be helpful for us, because it is helpful for a lot of people. Would that be okay?
Oh, that's a great way to start it. Yeah, I like it. Okay. So now on the coaching side, what can the counselors expect when they come to you for help of that fear of marketing?
Mhm.
How does that work?
Yep. So similarly, I start with an assessment, but it's a very different assessment than it is with the therapy assessment. So I really look more towards a couple of things. One, towards your goals. What is it that you want? But then also what's holding you back? Where are your stuck points? What's holding you back? With those stuck points, I go a little bit into the back. Like, tell me more about that. Let's kind of break those apart a little bit, just see where they're coming from. And then similarly as the therapy is, let's do some safety stabilization. Well, first of all, it's the psycho ed. What do you know about anxiety? What do you know about the fight flight response? All that good stuff. Because this stuff is all what's holding you back at the end of the day. And then we do some of that coping skills, but the coping skills are a little bit more 80% logic and 20% calming the system down. Because I know what I have to do, I just can't do it, but I want to calm the system down and then do it. So it's really kind of integrating both of those pieces together. Whereas in the therapy side, I'm really focused on calming the system down frequently. Once I get the system calm, then I'm going to be able to go into the logic side and all that other good stuff as well. But on the coaching, I'm expecting them already to be mostly okay. So I don't need to focus only on the body. It's really kind of starting a couple steps ahead.
And let me fear. So fear is a lot of your work, right? Obviously. Is it much different, the coaching, the fear that these counselors might be having of getting out there than a client is like, or fear is fear? Any insight on that? Fear is fear.
Fear is fear. Basically, fear is a perceived danger. That perceived danger may be real, but it may not be real, right? But I am perceiving some level of danger, and that danger could be an emotional threat or a physical threat. So fear of rejection is emotional. I'm not going to die. Yeah, I'm not going to die if you say, no, I don't want to work with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank God.
Right? But it doesn't matter. My amygdala is still going off. And what if I get rejected? What if I'm humiliated? Right? So fear is fear. And it doesn't distinguish between physical death and emotional.
Got it. So fear is fear. I like that. So let me ask you this. So when someone says being fearless, is that possible for someone to be fearless? Or
everybody's fear response system is different. So for the most part, if they're fearless, there might still be something that they're afraid of. It might be buried deep down inside and they never deal with it, so they don't ever see it, so they don't know that they're afraid of it, or they don't want to say it to anybody because they don't want to feel weak. But there's probably something somewhere that is still scaring them. But I'm not going to go bungee jumping.
Me either. I'm not going
but other people are going to go bungee jumping and jumping out of a plane. No, thank you. Right. So we all have our own levels of what fear is.
Of course.
So somebody that's jumping out of airplanes and bungee jumping might appear fearless, but they might be terrified at the end of the day that their child is going to die.
So it's human, right? Being fearful of things is human. So what would you tell someone that is always has the fear, like the fear of failure, like you said, fear of not being accepted? What would be a tip that you can give them to, I know you can't heal it all in one, but to start the process of going through that?
The first thing I would say to people is you're normal. Your brain is doing exactly what your brain is supposed to be doing. Your brain is trying to keep you alive.
Love it. I love it. So fear can be a good thing, right? I mean,
fear is absolutely a good thing.
So
I'm not going to jump off that cliff without a bungee cord, right? It is.
What is it with you, man? The bears, though.
I don't know. So it is definitely, it keeps us alive. And similar. So an example I like to give to people, it's very, very different from what we're talking about, but you know, our um, experiences aren't just ours, but are learned and witnessed. A lot of women, for example, a lot of women are anxious walking into a parking garage late at night. Comparatively, how many women have had something happen to them?
Wow,
Comparatively, not
yes.
as many, right?
That's right.
But what do we hear on the news? What do we hear from friends? What do we see in social media? What do we see in movies? Right? So a lot of women have this anxiety. There's nothing wrong with that anxiety. You know, your brain is learned that this is a potentially dangerous situation. So it's getting you activated so that if something does happen and you do need to fight or flight,
Right.
you've already got that energy. You've already got that chemical throughout your body. So if you're anxious, perpetually anxious about everything, your brain is trying to protect you.
Got it.
You're normal. Your brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing.
I love it. That's great. That's great. I love it. So, what would you tell your future client? It could be in both coaching or in counseling. What do you want them to hear about you, about your purpose? What do you want them to know about you so they can come see you?
Oh boy, that's putting me on the spot.
I told you I was gonna get one.
You got me on that one. All right. So I guess my goal is always your goal. You know, my goal is to help you reach your goal, whatever that means. And if I am not the right person for you, I will find you somebody else. I am not the right therapist for everybody. I am not the right coach for everybody. And I'm not trying to be the right coach or therapist for everybody. So if you feel that everything that I said matches exactly what you're going through, it doesn't mean 100% that we are a good match. Personalities matter. Location matters. You know, are you okay with where you're at? You know, we're going to be doing virtual, right? You know, so is virtual okay versus in person? I may not be the right therapist or coach for you, and that's okay. You know, it's not a one and done situation.
Got it. Got it. Well, that's good. That's actually beautiful of you to say that. Very humble, very awesome, and might be what someone needs to hear in order to go, because that's how most counselors feel, right? They understand we're not always going to be the good fit, but just come talk to me, and
Right.
let's get you there.
Right. I think one of the problems a lot of people face is I open up to you and I tell you my whole life story in that first session, and then I have to do it again because we're not a good fit.
Got it.
I don't want to do that.
Actually, I thought that way too. Now that you mention it, yeah, that is hard. So where can people find you in your coaching, in your counseling?
Yeah.
How can they find you?
So I have two different websites, because if you're coming to me for coaching or you're coming to me for counseling, I have two different hats. So I have two different businesses. So if you're coming to me for therapy, it's Meg, my first name, my last name, Meg Young, LCSW.com. Meg Young, LCSW.com. And if you're coming to me for coaching, that's lifestylereboot.me. Rebooting my lifestyle. I'm okay with where I am, but I want to be better. I'm rebooting my lifestyle.
Right. And we could all get better at anything, right?
Yes.
Anything else you want to share while we're here?
I feel like I left people hanging with what I had just said. So, you know, I don't want to open up to you and then have to go elsewhere. If there's a lot going on and you don't, like, if you have a lot of trauma and you really don't want to share all that trauma and then go somewhere else and have to share it all again, my recommendation with that is saying to the therapist, look, you know, can we do an overview of this stuff right now? Can we not, I don't want to tell you all of my traumas right here, right now. Can we slowly open into those as I get to know you a little bit better? So when the therapist says, so have you had any traumas throughout your life? You know, you can then say, yes, but I'd like to talk about those a little bit more later, right? So you don't have to necessarily open everything up, but you don't have to necessarily just be completely guarded and say, I don't want to talk about that.
Got it. That was good. Look at you, such a counselor. You couldn't leave that one. You had
I
to,
couldn't.
to make sure we go healthy with it. I love it. Well, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
I love what you're doing. Seriously, please keep doing what you're doing. The fact that you're helping so many people, especially the powerful people that are out there helping other people,
Yes.
makes you a superhero.
No.
So I hope you know that. I hope you go
Thank
to
you.
bed, you wake up knowing that you are doing great work. Please
you.
keep it up and don't stop, because community needs you, right? So Meg, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
I'm happy to have you. Thank you so much, okay?
All right. Have a wonderful night.